Councilman, you're on air.
He's talking. Shh. It was at the church, St. Luke, on Clinton Avenue, and she was there. Yes.
We're on air.
We're on the air?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I'm just trying to clarify something with Priscilla, who was at the program for the deaf and hard of hearing.
I'm in the chamber.
Let's get started. Mr. Clerk, are you ready?
All right, thank you, sir.
Mr. Clerk, we have a quorum on the floor.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Newark Municipal Council's pre-meeting. Madam President, we will start with the agenda. Are there any questions of the recommendations of the boards and commissions?
Hearing none.
Ordinance on first reading, 6FA is the
Mr. Clerk, just a moment.
we're having trouble with Legistar in the system. We don't know till you complain.
Probably you and John and Aníbal are the three. Mr. Clerk, back to the agenda, please.
Ordinance on first reading, 6FA is the amusements, the special events ordinance. We have just given you a new amendment. If you look at the we need to correct that. My error. Okay, we will fix that. Those are the two changes that Councilman Amador is seeking. The rest of the items, as you can see, are the changes that the administration is asking for.
So is he prepared for us to move this item?
Yes, I believe he is, yes. I've talked
Okay,
to him
Madam
this morning.
President, just for clarification, so there should be no 10% on this at all?
It'll be 20%, yes, it'd be 20% all throughout.
Okay, thank you.
So at the meeting, we will move and
At the
adopt.
meeting, we will amend.
advance.
We will amend on the floor and advertise it for a public hearing at the next council meeting.
We will amend on the floor and
Advertise for a public hearing at the next
advertise.
council meeting.
Good, okay. I'm gonna steal your host there. I just want you to know in advance, I'm going to aggressively. Next item, Mr. Clerk. I'm sorry, I was talking to Councilman.
6FB is the executive order advertising. I'll ask the council members tomorrow to table this ordinance. We have a new version coming, which simply allows us to advertise on the website.
Councilman, is that? That's good. Next item.
C is the amendment to the legal services for eviction proceedings, which would expand the pool of available attorneys.
Mr. Clerk, I thought this was a city administrative law.
It is.
But the city doesn't have,
Someone called that to my attention. I'm sorry.
the city doesn't have the attorneys to prosecute the cases. So I believe that what they are doing is expanding the pool of available attorneys.
All right. Mr. Corp Counsel?
Morning, Kenyatta Stewart, City of Newark Corporation Counsel. So essentially, under the ordinance as it stands now, unfortunately, we don't have the ability to contract with private individuals. The reason why it's important is because a number of the nonprofits receive federal funding and they cannot represent.
No, I support. I support. It's just that I received a phone call
Oh, okay.
indicating that they were aware of the fact that,
We're not aware of? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, I'm sorry.
yes, someone called and indicated that this was redundant because we already had a municipal/city law.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I'm very much in support. And I think probably one of the most important statements you just made, the privacy of nonprofits is critical to their ability to fundraise.
Sure.
And if it became public knowledge, those who don't support that particular organization would probably make their feelings and positions known. So it's a safety guard.
Okay.
Any other comments about? Next item.
8B is the ordinance granting a 20-year tax abatement to the 869 Broad Urban Renewal LLC. This is for a project to convert an existing 4-story retail office building into a residential and retail development consisting of 37 market-rate residential rental units, 11,740 square feet of ground floor retail, and an 889 square foot lobby located at 869-873 Broad Street.
Comments? Next item.
Yeah, the question that I have,
Councilman.
and I don't oppose the abatement, I just ask why now? Let's say this building has been completed, I believe it's rented, why now? Let's say, why didn't they come to us before? Because normally what we do is a tax abatement is to fill a void in the financing. I don't see here that void or being a void because the building is already up.
It's been up.
Good morning, Allison Ladd, Acting Director of EHD. Council member, it's a good question. I can tell you that the application was made, as you may know, 2 years ago. And so at that point, that was when the city was moving forward to review the finances. Where we are at this point is we're looking to approve and we'll recommend approval of the tax abatement. And it's the timing just didn't happen as quickly as we'd like.
Councilman McCallum.
No, the concern with this is that there's certain requirements for the tax abatement, where there's certain hiring requirements and things like that. And not one minority was working on it, because I was over there just about every day. So how can they meet the requirements at this late date?
Oh, Councilmember, I did not understand that that was the case, but I'm happy to talk with the developer again. I spoke with them 2 weeks ago before we brought the matter forward to you, and the concern I had at that moment was to ensure that the developer was being a good neighbor to the bookstore that was adjacent to it, and I know that they were able to meet with the bookstore on the 25th of August, and so that gave me comfort that we were working towards common goals. But I wasn't aware that there was a concern about the hiring.
Well, I don't know about them being a good neighbor, not from where I'm sitting. I go to the gym over top of the bookstore, and there are issues. And from the whole time that they were building, there were issues. So I'm just really having an issue with this, because how can you give a tax abatement after the fact?
The councilwoman.
That's the Monica knows something, I don't know.
I thought
She's here.
I saw her. Oh, here she is. Good morning.
Yeah, but the administration.
We're doing page 4, 6FP.
Madam President, if there's items that I can respond to the council prior to tomorrow, I'm happy to follow up with the developer today.
You want to say anything?
I don't have a problem with this.
Page 6, page 4?
Yeah, this is fine.
You don't have a copy of the,
Are you asking me do I have an issue?
You did? Yeah.
I don't have an issue.
Well, I wasn't there, but
so,
did this come through the abatement committee?
Yes, this came through the abatement committee quite a while ago, yeah.
And do we have all the requirements in terms of hiring and all that were satisfied? So,
The building has been built. They've been open.
no, I know that, and that's my concern. My concern is why come, let's say, at this date, when in fact, let's say, normally is to fill a void in financing. You indicated to us that the application was submitted 2 years ago.
Yes, sir.
The thing is, why now? They say, why did it take 2 years to get to this point?
Councilmember McIver and Councilmember Gonzalez, yes, I had similar questions about the timing for us to move tax abatement requests forward. I was able to see that as it relates to this project in particular, it was applied for 2 years ago. It did go through the tax abatement committee, and I understand that there might be some outstanding questions, and I'm happy to talk to the developer today to give you more assurance that the requirements were met.
One thing, Madam President, is
Yes.
in this case, let's say the developer had the resources, the funds to finance the completion of the building. In some other cases, the developer might not have the financing available to him if this is not approved in time, and that kills the project or may kill the project. I believe that it's imperative that when these projects are presented to the city, that the process is expedited so that we might not kill some projects. The city needs the development. I am 100% pro-development, but we have to put all our ducks in line so that this process is quick and not, let's say, take 2 years.
Councilmember, I would agree with you. It is one of the older applications that we have. Many other applications that we've received have moved more swiftly, and that is a commitment that I'm making to ensure that we move more quickly on these types of requests. I would say, just anecdotally and in a hypothetical way, sometimes when it comes to real estate transactions, developers are able to look for ways to fill a gap in the short term if they have some sense that there's support from the city. I think that as the project moved through the approval process, including the tax abatement committee, that there was some sense that the city was supportive of the request. And so, as many of you know, that does give a developer a way to consider ways for them to finance any cost in the short term with anticipation that there could be support from the city in the long term.
Council President, we asked the same question at the tax abatement committee meeting. These people, this group appeared before us months ago, probably like 7 months ago, and that was the same issue regarding the processing of their application, which I cannot speak to. I know that they did submit the application before even preparing to do development on this site. However, the committee had no issues with this request. It moved forward to the council, and this is the second time it's appearing on the agenda, because I think today's might be, the final? And I don't have any issues with it either. I met with the developer who has quite a few developments and properties here in our city, who have been very supportive to the city as well as some of our community initiatives as well. So I do not have an issue with this particular item.
In addition, Ms. Ladd, let me suggest to you, you indicated you're going to do some research and fact-finding.
Yes.
Please, and I know how busy you are, but between you and your staff, if you can get the information to us later today as opposed to tomorrow morning.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Prior to the meeting.
Yes, ma'am, I will follow up. I will follow up today. Thank you.
Next item, Mr. Clerk.
Before we move forward, I'd like to be noted as a sponsor for 6FD.
Second. Next item.
Second reading, public hearing, and final passage, 6 PSNF-A is establish a requirement for certification for inspections prior to rental of apartment units.
Any comments?
Actually, we would, for the record, Kenyatta Stewart, City of Newark Law Department. So we would ask, if possible, if we can defer this to the 18th, to the meeting of the 18th, please.
Mr. Clerk?
B is a ordinance that add a new chapter titled Short-Term Rentals to Title 18 entitled Housing Code.
Any other comments? Next item, Mr. Clerk.
C would add a new chapter 36 entitled The Use of Plastic Bags Prohibited. Councilwoman?
We're still deferring. If we could defer one more time, if we don't make any progress to my council members, we will go ahead and table it. But due to a couple of other issues that we've been having and other things that we're dealing with on the administration side, we haven't had a chance to set up meetings and do the things that we promised that we would do with the community. So if we could defer one more time, and if no progress, next meeting we'll move forward to table.
Mr. Clerk, next item.
D is the vacation of the of Passaic Place.
I just want to quickly speak in favor of this particular ordinance. We're trying to develop Riverfront Park, and this is, I don't know where the councilman is on this particular one, but the questions that must have been raised, have they been answered?
I think it's okay to move forward. When it was first introduced to us, we had some questions regarding more details about it, which the administration provided, which was fine for me. I don't have any issues being that this particular vacation is in the Central Ward, but it's, in the East neighborhood.
So you want it?
Yeah, it's fine, unless you have some issues.
I'm totally in support of it. Next item.
E is an ordinance adopting the Fifth Amendment to the Newark Living Downtown Redevelopment Plan to correct certain errors identified in the Third Amendment to the Newark Living Downtown Redevelopment Plan by removing certain properties.
Councilman Amador is absent, so hopefully we'll be able to get some direction from him, and we'll know tomorrow.
F is a refunding bond ordinance for $88 million at the request of Finance. We will be deferring action on this until the meeting of the 18th. We're waiting for local finance board approval. That also applies to G, the refunding bond ordinance for $30 million, and also to H, which is a refunding bond ordinance for $5.5 million. All three are waiting at local finance board approval.
Next item.
J is the apprenticeship project labor agreements. Councilman Osborne, you wish to defer action at this time?
Yeah, we're still working on some of the amendments. So
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm going to have to defer one more time. We're still working on some of the amendments.
Have a second?
Second.
J is the ordinance conveying temporary work easements on several blocks of city property. This is all part of the Joseph H. Minish Passaic Riverfront Park.
Any comments, questions? Where are we going? Council as a whole? Next item.
K is also access easement to city property. No question?
Lady. Is this yours?
The PLA was not that one.
council as a whole tomorrow.
L is the ordinance granting a tax exemption to the Newark Maker Hoods Urban Renewal LLC. This item, because we adopted it on first at the special last week, we will have to defer action on this until the next council meeting. M is a bond ordinance providing for the funding for a temporary emergency appropriation. This is the $120 million for the lead service line replacement.
Councilman Ramos? You want to
They have the meeting with the finance board. It was approved.
only because, well, you know why I said that. So,
Was it
Council.
approved by the finance board?
Good morning, Ben Guzman, Department of Finance. Yes, we are tentatively scheduled to be on the local finance board meeting of the 11th, which is next week. We're assuming at this point that it will be approved by local finance board, but we'd like to wait until we hear their decision. And then we ask that this be deferred until the meeting of the following council meeting of the 18th.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Council as a whole to defer tomorrow.
No, it's going to be voted on tomorrow. It's going to be voted on tomorrow, right?
No.
No.
It can't be voted on until after the 11th.
We deferred because the finance.
Oh, okay.
Local Finance Board.
So we have to wait for that first. Okay. I missed that, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Mr. Clerk.
7R, Resolution 7R1A is exemption to public bidding agreement for an agreement with the government entity. This is the Newark Math Success Initiative from the New Jersey Institute of Technology.
Sponsor. Council as a whole.
B is a temporary appropriation to provide case management and environmental investigation service for children with elevated lead levels.
It's kind of related. I'd like to sponsor that as well.
I'll second it. Very timely.
C is a temporary emergency appropriation to enhance the City of Newark and the Urban Area Security Initiative.
Council as a whole.
D is a temporary emergency appropriation to enhance the City of Newark Urban Area Security Initiative. There are three of these ordinances in succession. They cover different years that overlap.
Council as a whole. I heard you say.
E is also a temporary emergency to enhance the Newark and the Urban Area Security Initiative. F is a temporary appropriation to provide funds for the operating expenses until the adoption of the 2019 operating budget for the City of Newark and the Department of Water, Sewer, Utilities.
Council as a whole.
701G is the use of a state contract to provide Department of Water, Sewer, Utilities with a mechanism to purchase software products and associated services through a software reseller.
Council as a whole.
H is a authorizing bid contract for the maintenance and repair of trucks over 1 ton capacity.
Council as a whole.
I is a bid contract to provide various traffic signal control cabinets.
Council as a whole.
Madam President, if I
I'm
may.
sorry. Yes, of course.
Let's say, this would be a great opportunity to bring to the fore the request that we have had many times already for attachments to the light so that the vision impaired individuals in the city of Newark will have some kind of notice when the light changes. Right now we have a countdown, but that countdown is silent, so any person that that is visually impaired will not know whether the light has changed or not. We have requested this for the last 2 years, and I believe it's time that we do something.
Approximately 2 months ago, the mayor sponsored a meeting to address the needs of those who are differently able, specifically the blind as well, and the blind and hard of hearing, the deaf and hard of hearing. And one of the recommendations that Councilman Gonzalez just introduced was some kind of repetitive countdown that could be heard by the deaf and hard of hearing. We have Priscilla here, and I'm going to ask Priscilla if she will step to the microphone and give us information as to why this is critical to the quality of life for those who are differently able. Priscilla, pull the microphone down.
Oh, okay. First of all, thank you, everybody, for having me here and for, being me in consideration so that I can speak about this presentation.
Priscilla, do me a favor, do us a favor. Give your full name and your address.
Okay, my name is Priscilla Garces, and I am at 21 Darcy Street. And first of all, I would like to thank all of you for having me to speak here about this pressing issue, because it is critically important now. But before I do start, I would like to briefly explain about the different signals, which is it's normally called the street buzzers, but it's the accessible pedestrian signals, which are the enhancements for putting into the street lights so that people who have a visually impaired or who have hearing problems or different disabilities could be able to cross. And that is critically very important, because as a person who has a visually impaired myself, I have encountered certain difficulties when it comes to crossing the street. I can particularly tell about one story that happened a while back when they did not have the notice for crossing the street. I was crossing the street in an area where they didn't have the signals, and one of the people was passing by and happens to run over and said, "Well, you scared me." And I was like, why did that happen? And he's like, "Well, you scared me because there's a car coming past you. Did you hear it?" And I said, "No." And that's why it is very critical that we install these accessible pedestrian signals, so that people are able to hear, whether it's like the buzzer with the countdown or the pedestrian signals that have the audible messages, which is important, so that people can be able to cross independently. There is a critical need for visually impaired members in the community and in the city of Newark so that they can cross. And most of the time, the intersections can be pretty busy, and so the cars can miscalculate. They can miscalculate the distance, and oftentimes they could be quietly idling and turn, and a person who is visually impaired or is totally blind, depending on the severity of the visually impairment that they have, is not able to really determine and cannot hear very well when it is safe to cross, because of many other factors like noise reduction or the blockage of noise. So it is important and it is critical that these buzzers and these street signals are implemented by talking to the different people in the community and developing policies that can reinforce the accessibility for the population groups, because indirectly it'll benefit not only the people with visual problems, but the drivers as well, because they could be very mindful of when they are able to drive safely when they approach people with disabilities in the streets. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Mr. Clerk, in addition, thank you very much, Priscilla. She's quite an activist, everybody. In addition to Councilman Gonzalez's mentioning and Priscilla's explanation, there was one other item that came out of the mayor's meeting on disabilities, and that was that the council hire a signer. There were a number of persons there at that meeting, and Councilwoman McIver was there, and Councilman Gonzalez. Were you at that meeting? I think you were. But anyway, the point is, forgive me for going off point. One of the other recommendations, and Mr. Clerk, as soon as possible, if we can put together a resolution with the appropriate data, I'd like to offer a motion that we also hire a signer for our council meetings, that those who are deaf and hard of hearing may be able to know what's going on. That's it. I'll do that under motions. Next item.
(7R01K) is a bid contract provide meals delivered services for prisoners. 1L is the use of a state contract for the purchase of 5 Dodge Journeys.
Next item.
1M is a bid contract to provide pedestrian countdown signals.
Next item.
1N is a authorizing resolution for the exception to public bidding for the negotiated contract after no bids received to exceed cost. This is for catered nutritional lunches for senior nutrition program.
Next item.
702A is a private sale and redevelopment to redevelop properties into 4 3-family and 1 2-family residential home.
Next item, Mr. Clerk.
2B is a grant agreement to grant financial assistance for the building of a community center with 3 office storage space, a kitchen, 2 bathrooms on each floor with an adjacent 32-car parking.
I'm sorry, Council President?
Yes.
If we can go back to 7R2A,
Yes.
I would like to request it to be deferred.
Roll call to defer for this one.
702A, do I have a second for deferral?
Second.
Second by Councilman Osborne.
Okay.
Mr. Clerk, I'd like to sponsor 7R2B.
Ready for the second?
Second.
2C is an affordable housing agreement for the construction of 60 affordable residential units.
Next item.
Oh, I'm sorry, 7R2C, I'd like to sponsor.
Sponsored by Councilwoman McIver.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Osborne.
2D is a private sale and redevelopment to construct a warehouse and office building with parking. 2E is a private sale and redevelopment to construct a new 2-family residential home.
Next item.
2F is an investigation for an area in need of redevelopment.
Next item.
7R3A is a bid contract to provide traffic signals, optimization and adaptive signals along McCarter Highway.
Next item.
7R3B is a change order to provide an amendment to contract 04-2014 Broad Street and South Street, Titchener Street and Lincoln Park pedestrian safety project.
Mr. Clerk, this is a change order. What was the cost of the original?
The original cost of this contract is $2.2 million. This change order,
What was the original?
Extending the time.
this simply extends the time that
Oh,
they have to complete the
it's not a
project.
regular change order then. Change orders usually involve an addition of more funds. Next item.
3C is a change order to execute an amendment to the cost reimbursement agreement for the Broad Street intersection, City of Newark, for the CON project with the State of New Jersey Department of Transportation to extend the expiration period for the agreement until May 2021.
Next item.
3D is an application and acceptance of grant funds for the 2020 Sub-Regional Transportation Planning Program.
Next item.
7R4A is a stipulation of settlement for tax appeals.
Next item.
7R5A is an application and acceptance of grant funds to provide case management and environmental investigation services for children with elevated lead levels.
Sponsor.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman James.
6A is we will discuss with Corporation Counsel in executive session. 7R6B, we will discuss with Corporation Counsel in executive session. 7R6C is a professional services contract to provide legal services for litigation defense as special counsel. 7R8A is a constable appointment. 7R8B is also a constable appointment. 7R8C is a ceremonial street dedication. 7R8D are various recognizing and commending resolutions. 8E are various expressions of profound sorrow and regret. 7R9A is a professional services contract for the First Amendment to the agreement to provide clinical and forensic, psychological, and counseling services.
Next item.
9B is a authorizing resolution to use the state competitive contractor pursuant to authorize the use of competitive contractor for fire rescue billing services.
Next item.
7R11A is an acceptance of a gift, equipment, material, and labor for the Mildred Helms Park.
Next item.
On communications, 8A is an ordinance granting the parking prohibited at all times. This would remove the Prospect Road between Prospect Street and its westerly terminus from the parking prohibited at all times.
Councilman Amador. A sponsor, is there a second?
Want to advance,
Sponsor and adopt on first.
advance and adopt on first?
I second that.
Okay. Yes.
Oh, that concludes the agenda. We have a full boat of speakers for the hearing of citizens.
Madam President?
Yes, Councilman James.
I'd like us all to have a moment of silence for Reverend Chamblee from Promised Land Church, who passed away. Our prayers go out to his family, longtime resident of the city of Newark, loved this city, and specifically his arrangements are as follows. On Thursday, September 5th, from 12 to 8, be a viewing, celebration of life and legacy at Promised Land Baptist Church, 592 Hunterdon Street. And a funeral will take place Friday, September 6th at 10 a.m. at Faith Temple Baptist Church, 499 Main Street, East Orange. God bless the Chamblee family.
Mr. Clerk, I'd like to second the councilman's motion. Reverend Chamblee was one of my honorary pastors, and he had no problem keeping me on the straight in a narrow path as a public servant. He had no problem in front of his group that met every Friday morning of servants to this city, reminding me that I owed a debt to those who had elected me. I join with the family and the hundreds of people who will be affected by his loss, not just the spiritual aspect, but he also had one of the greatest soul food restaurants in the great city of Newark. And on Sunday, you couldn't get in there if you didn't get there close to 12:30 and 1 o'clock. We will miss him, and as the councilman said, God bless the family during this time. Anyone else? Mr. Clerk?
We have 3 items that are attempting to reach the council for tomorrow's meeting as added starters. The first would be the settlement, which we will discuss with Corporation Counsel in an executive session. The second is a resolution authorizing the mayor or his designee, the acting director of the Department of Water and Sewer Utilities, to accept the lowest responsible bid submitted by Millennium Communications and execute contract 18WS 2018 Pequannock Watershed Dams Reservoir Security Improvements, Phase 1 with Millennium Communications. And the final item is an ordinance to amend and supplement the Title 16, entitled Health, Sanitation, and Air Pollution of the Revised General Ordinance of the City by adding a new Chapter 23 entitled Mandatory Lead Service Line Replacement. That is.
Any other comments? Mr. Clerk, roll call for executive session.
Let's do the public speaking before.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Please forgive me.
This is where we're now in the executive session period, in the public speaking period. This is a 30-minute period in which speakers will be given 3 minutes to speak. When you step to the microphone, please state your name and address for the record. You'll see a small timing device on the podium that will begin counting down your time when you begin speaking. When you reach the 2-minute mark, the yellow light will illuminate, indicating that you have 1 minute remaining for summation. When you reach the 3rd minute, the red light will illuminate, and there will be an audible sound indicating that your time has expired. Is there anyone present that wishes to speak at this time?
No one appearing, Mr. Clerk.
No one appearing. Motion go into executive session. Council of the whole.
Roll call.
Yes.
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 Congratulations, Keith, to your wife.
Yes.
You became principal.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I was
Yeah, she became a principal.
gave a resolution yesterday,
Yeah.
opening day.